our Care Community podcast today. My name is Jennifer McQuillan, your host in today's Care Community podcast. Today's episode is one that carries both weight and hope. We are honoured to sit with someone whose story is not only deeply personal, but also incredibly powerful. Joining us is attorney and author Karen Botha, who shares her journey in her book, Trauma to Triumph. This is more than a story. It's a testimony of courage, of resilience, and the strength it takes to rebuild a life after experiencing gender-based violence. Karen, thank you for being here with us today and for your willingness to share your heart so openly. So before we talk about the book, I'd love to start here. Who is Karen beyond your profession and beyond your powerful story?
So I actually wanted to refer to a chapter in my book because I actually talk about this under a heading, authenticity. And I challenge readers to answer these questions because I was asked the same thing. To answer these questions: what am I? Why am I? How am I? Where am I? And when am I? And I sat with this for a long time because this is all about your identity. Because when we ask to introduce ourselves, we say, oh, I'm an attorney, and I'm a mom, and I'm a whatever. So these are my answers. I won't read the whole thing. I'm just going to give you some of them, if you will bear with me. So what am I? I am the stillness in the storm. I am purpose crafted through pain. Why am I? I am to speak truth for transformation, to transform trauma into triumph. How am I? I am broken, yet brave. I am powerless, yet powerful. I am the stillness and the storm. Where am I? I am in the past and in the present. I am at the bridge between what broke me and what birthed me. When am I? I am when the voiceless need a voice. I am when fear needs fearlessness. I am the phoenix rising, not as a replica of who I was, but as something new, transformed through fire into wisdom, rising again and again and again. That's who I am.
Karen, I don't think anybody could have put it any better than that. It is incredibly meaningful and deep, and I'm going to have to listen to this again to actually grasp the full meaning of what you're actually saying, because it is so incredibly powerful. So thank you for that very much. So Karen, what gave you the courage to move from silence into sharing something so deeply personal?
So it didn't always feel like courage at the time. What it felt like was that I couldn't carry the weight of the silence anymore. So, and for a long time, silence actually felt safer for me, but it also was keeping me stuck. And sharing my story, for me, it wasn't about being brave. It was about being honest. And if I have to ask others to be honest with me, I need to be honest with myself and with others. And
that's incredibly powerful, and that totally makes sense. And I think a lot of people will resonate with you. What were some of the silent battles you were facing that you felt that people around you couldn't see?
Oh, all of them. So, from the outside, it looks like everything's functional and we're doing just fine. And we are taught that we have to, get up, dress up, show up, and not share what's going on. But inside there's anxiety, there's hypervigilance, because that for me was one of the big things. And self-doubt, sure. I mean, absolutely no self-esteem, complete imposter syndrome all the time. So, trauma doesn't always show up as a crisis. It often just looks like we're coping. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, people don't necessarily present as if they're going through trauma, but we're all going through trauma. And it's that understanding and being kind to yourself, knowing that it's okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think all of us especially, I must say, as a woman in South Africa, we are all we all have dealt with trauma in some way or form, and many men too, many young girls, many young boys, and I think we're at different stages of acknowledgement as well of what we've been through. So, for you, what were some of the emotional or psychological barriers that made it hard to acknowledge what had actually happened to you on the farm and then later on at school?
So I think the point that you made just now is actually it resonates here, is that one of the hardest things is we don't always realize that we're in trauma when we're in it. We don't recognize the trauma. And as South Africans, particularly, we've normalized it. We live in one of the most violent countries in the world. We live in a poverty-stricken country. We've got huge unemployment. All of that is trauma. But we minimize it and we rationalize it and we do all of those kind of things. And especially when it happens in places where we're meant to feel safe. So I was meant to feel safe at home, but I wasn't on the farm. So my mind protected me by not allowing me to fully see it. So, and a lot of survivors experience this, very traumatic events that you don't see the full picture, you have flashbacks. So yeah, that's just your brain protecting you from re-experiencing that trauma.
And was there a particular moment that you can actually pinpoint where fear felt louder than hope?
Yes. There were many times when fear was louder than hope. But what I've learned is that hope doesn't always come as a loud voice. It's often just this quiet whisper that says, this cannot be the end of my story.
I hear you. And I think, as you say, because you went through a variety of trauma, a lot of different types of trauma from different people in different ways, and through quite a few over many years of your life as well. So there couldn't have just been one point. You've withstood quite a lot actually in your life, Karen. I'm sure that resonates also with many people today. In your book, you discuss the AQ, the adversity quotient. Please, can you explain this to our viewers?
Sure. So AQ is essentially how we respond to adversity, and it looks at four things. So first of all, control. So what can I influence and what can I control? And I talk about this in my book. Specifically talk about your circle of control is literally you, because you can't control anything else. You can control you and how you respond and how you react. The second one is ownership. So what must I take responsibility for? I can take responsibility for the way that I react to what happens in my life, to the trauma I experience. I can't take responsibility for what other people did to me. The people who bullied me, the people who sexually abused me, that's theirs. But I can take responsibility for how I allow that to affect my life. Right? Then the third one is reach. So how far is this situation that's happened to me going to define my life? So, and I think of it as defining it either negatively or positively. I could have allowed, and I did for a very long time, allowed to define me negatively. And it did define me negatively, right? I became angry and anxious and all of those negative emotions. And then I decided that it does define me. It makes me who I am. But I'm grateful for that because it's made me who I am. And so it's redefining it and then how that reach can then reach other people for me. That's what it means to me. And then the last one is endurance. So is it permanent or is it something I can change? And again, I go back to what am I in control of? I can change how I let it define me. Is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? And I think understanding that helped me shift from feeling completely powerless to recognizing where I did have agency and control.
Absolutely, and that makes total sense. So, viewers, I've had the great privilege of reading Karen's draft of her book. And I think for me, that was an area, the AQ, actually really, really, I read it, and I thought, wow, this is really good, and this is strong. It's strong, and it resonates to me as a woman, especially, but just as a human being, And then I read it again and again, and I think that's incredibly powerful what you say, because we actually do have control over certain things in our lives, and how we respond as opposed to reacting to things, and also when we have gone through something, allowing ourselves to heal. I think that's also a real big thing, isn't it?
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Let's now talk about trauma and our brain's alarm system, the amygdala. Did I pronounce it correctly?
I always get it wrong. So it's either amygdala or amygdala.
Okay.
I think it's just a preference. Yeah.
Okay. And then what leads on to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? It's intriguing.
It is. So instead of having to say that terrible word, amygdala, you can think of it as your reptile brain. Yeah. So our reptile brain sits at the back of our brain here, and it's the very first part of our brain that actually develops when we are just a wee dot. And our brain is literally wired to protect us. And so that's why I say in the book, your amygdala works like an alarm system. So when it senses danger, it just activates those survival responses, which are either you're going to fight, or you're going to flee, you're going to run, or you're going to freeze and not do anything. That's me. I'm a possum. I roll over and play dead and hope that everything's going to go away like, oh no. Or you're going to fawn, which is where we try and placate people and, to make it go away. I promise I'll do better, those kind of, and that happens a lot in sort of domestic violence type situations. Fawning is one of the big things. And I think the important thing to remember is that when this alarm system kicks in, you're not making a choice. This is an automatic response. And understanding that removes the shame for survivors. So I know for me, if there's a loud bang or I see something that makes me anxious, I get this feeling like there are a million ants running around my heart. It's a physiological reaction because there's adrenaline now pumping through my body at a rapid rate. And that's what our body does. It just pumps you with adrenaline because that adrenaline is going to give you the strength to either fight or flee or do whatever it needs to do. So knowing that, I think, is understanding that. It's like the first step to understanding there's nothing wrong with me. That's my body helping me to survive.
Absolutely. It's your coping mechanism that you've put in place. Because I think we put protective walls or barriers to actually get through situations, to deal with certain people, etc. in our lives, don't we? And oftentimes we change the way we are and the way we act and the way we respond, depending on who we're with, the company we're in, the situation we're in, don't we, as creatures?
Absolutely.
It's just human nature, isn't it, at the end of the day? So, Karen, can you tell us why sound, good, and strong communication matters in conflict resolution?
Good question. So, most conflict isn't about the surface issue, what we see. We talk about the iceberg principle. You see 1/10 of what's above the water. What's below is what's actually happening, right? So and conflict is usually about unmet needs, unprocessed emotion, and miscommunication. So we all communicate differently. I cover this in the book because it's so important. Because we need to remember that every single relationship we have is built on communication. If we're not communicating properly, it's going to damage that relationship. Every single one. Doesn't matter if it's a friendship, if it's a work colleague, if it's a partner or a spouse. Our relationships with our children are all based on how we communicate. And if we're communicating poorly, it's going to lead to conflict. So understanding how we communicate is so very important to resolving conflicts.
And also, when you say communication, also it's from us, but also we're hoping to, in response, get good communication from the person that we're dealing with as well. Because otherwise,
Correct.
how do you actually how do you resolve any kind of conflict if only one party is coming to the party?
It's about getting so now this goes into my mediation hat now comes on, and both parties have to be willing to have a conversation first of all, and then it's about how you manage that conversation. Because first of all, having a conversation, because very often when we're in a conflict situation, we don't even want to have a conversation because we know we're going to react in a bad way. So if we can step back, pause, think, and then respond rather than react. That's how we need to, and both parties have to be able to do that. And if the other party isn't, we need to understand how to manage that person.
Exactly. And I suppose must be very interesting to be a fly on the wall in your office at times to see how you're managing different personalities. And yeah, as you say, it's to have a considered response as opposed to a knee-jerk reaction. Is that right?
100%. And that's why you would have seen in my book, I do those like breathing exercises and those sort of things. And those really, I have to remind myself to do them because it's just breathe, pause, walk away, just get up, walk away, go for a walk, whatever it is that's going to get your mind right again, and start again.
Absolutely. And even sometimes just leave the room, leave the situation.
Yes,
And I even think,
yes,
and I talk now with a parent hat on, even sometimes you're like, okay,
yes,
deep breath, because we need to let little one have their time away, let them calm down,
yes,
think about what
yes,
they've done, think of
yes,
possible consequences, about
yes.
apologizing, whatever the case might be. But it belongs, the parent also needs to do that. Both need to walk away and then come back together again to resolve it. And it does need to be
Correct.
resolved because then otherwise what is the child learning, and we are their role model. So yeah, so
Exactly.
actually it's a way of life, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is exactly that. Yes.
So Karen, was there a defining moment when something shifted inside of you, when you knew you could not stay silent any longer and you needed to share your story with anyone who would listen?
It wasn't one dramatic moment. It was really a quiet realization that I, I didn't I didn't like who I'd become because of the trauma that I'd suffered. I didn't like the person that I was. And it was coming to the realization that when I actually started looking at other people and going, oh my gosh, what I see in that person that I don't like is actually me. They were like a reflection of myself. And so I realized that I could either stay silent and just survive, carry on surviving, or I could speak up and really begin to live. And and through that help other people in the same way that I've been able to help myself.
So, in helping yourself learning how to live again, you're actually helping others to help them to live again as well.
Mm.
And then, what did courage look like in that very moment? Not the big, loud kind, but that quiet, personal kind. What did that look like? Can you put it into words even?
Sure. Again, courage isn't that big moment, Certainly, like I look at what my son did, and that's like courage smack in your face. You can't look at what my son did um, as not being unbelievably courageous and selfless. But courage for me was in the small decisions. Just saying one honest thing, being honest to myself about one thing, asking for help, saying I'm not okay, I need help, and then choosing not to minimize my situation anymore, my experience, because it had always been minimized for me. And I chose to say it's not okay to minimize it.
Yeah, and it matters. I think that's a lot of the thing. It's like, well, Karen, you must just, it was in the past, leave it in the past type of thing, but not dealing with it and, not knowing and acknowledging that actually you need to, as Karen Botha, be able to move forward in your own life personally. How can you do
Yeah,
that if you haven't dealt with your past? You
yeah,
know? So, who or what helped you take that first step toward healing and renewal? Was there a very specific? I know your son. I read your son. I think also has a book in him. I must say, I think that was
Yeah,
amazing what he did.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can
a
see where he
huge
gets
book.
his courage from. I see where he gets his, no, it was amazing what he did. And I was like, wow, he's a lot braver than the average person. Was there a specific person who helped you, made you realize, actually, I need to take this step and to move on toward healing in my own life?
Yes. Well, so my son's journey was what pushed me to write my book. I've been toying with the idea for years, and that moment was definitely the moment where I thought, I've got to now, I've got to do it, I've got to put pen to paper, and I've got to come out and speak it loud, like not just in the small spaces that I inhabit, but everywhere. But the initial change came when I was first believed, and that was James. Um, excuse me, James has since passed away. But if it wasn't for James saying, I believe you, and then saying to me, I can't help you, but I can take you to a psychologist who can help you. You need to speak to a professional. And I did. I only went once.
Mm.
And that for me was the kicker. It was just having somebody there to hold space for me and go, I believe your experience.
And acknowledging what actually happened back on the farm. It must have been quite a lightning bolt moment for you, like, oh my gosh, it's not all in my head or my thoughts or these memories
Yes,
they are real, they were true, and it happened. And there's that acknowledgement sitting in front of you from him, and
absolutely.
you needed that.
Absolutely massive. Yeah.
So I can understand how that would be a huge turning point for you, definitely.
Mm.
You wrote a line in your book that I have read it, and I reread it and I reread it again because I really, really love it. And it says, my survival wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of service to others. And let me repeat that for our viewers. My survival wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of service to others.
Mm.
I find this particularly poignant, especially when we consider the fact that healing is often not a straight path. How did you begin rebuilding your sense of identity after everything you'd been through?
Mm. So trauma disconnects us from who we are. But at the same time, it also helps us recreate who we are. So for me, the healing process was reconnecting with who I was and then asking myself, who am I beyond what happened to me? And, and slowly from that, you begin to rebuild. And then it's not who you were before, but it's who you are becoming. And I'm still becoming. I don't think we ever become completely. We're always becoming and we're always learning. There's a new lesson every day. I thought my life was fabulous, and then one day I woke up on a very ordinary day, and next thing I know, my life has been thrown into chaos because my son's been arrested and he's been thrown in jail, and my whole life came crashing down around me. And I could look at that either as another that's going to throw me into turmoil again, or I can use that experience to better serve others.
I can fully understand what you mean by that. And also, I mean, I know with your son, you were 2,000 kilometers away from him. So I think that must have just added on to, compounded the helplessness
Mm,
that you must have felt at that time with your son. So at what
absolutely.
point, Karen, did your pain begin to shift into purpose? What led you to write Trauma to Triumph? And why did it feel important to share your story now? Why is it important for you now to let everybody know what Karen Botha went through?
So at some point, and I can't pinpoint when, I realized that my story wasn't just about me. And my story is not special. I work with people in trauma every day. And I there's nothing special about my story. but I can use my story because of the platform that I have. I can use my story to share it. And if I help just one person feel less alone and feel less like there's something wrong with them, then my story mattered. My pain mattered.
I think that resonates. And like we say, we spoke about it earlier when you said that you realized it mattered, and then other people's their pain, it matters. And I think it's for someone to come to that realization on their own personal level. Actually, what I've been through did happen. I acknowledge it happened. And actually, it really matters. And I can't, I need help. And as you say, that's courage. It's asking for that. It's that moving forward. It's a conscious decision that you make in your own life, doesn't it? Was there anything in the writing process of writing your book that surprised you or brought up emotions that you maybe didn't expect?
Hugely. So after I'd done the draft of the first chapter, I sent it to a friend, and he knows me well, and he read it, and he was like, "Karen, it's great. I love your writing style. It's very engaging and it's very powerful, but there's not enough of you in there. There's not enough emotion. It's too flat." And I was like, "What do you mean it's too flat? Like, there's so much emotion." And he was like, "No, you have to dig deeper. If you're going to be really honest, you have to be completely honest." I was like, "Okay." I'll take the positive reinforcements. I went back to the drawing board, and then I literally sat down and mapped everything that had happened in my life from the day I was born, each experience, good and bad. So I put, positive on one side of a line and negative on the other. And I went through the years like this. And you start to see this flow of your life. And I started remembering things that I had completely forgotten. When we go through trauma, we put our emotions into little boxes and we go and pack it up in the attic. And we store it up there because the world doesn't accept our emotion. We're not allowed to be emotional. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to be sad. We're not allowed to be angry. We've got to fit into these boxes. So we take our emotions, we put it in a box, and we store it in the attic. And the experience of writing it down made me go upstairs to that attic and take out those boxes and unpack them.
I think that's a brilliant analogy. I think afterwards, once you've done the exercise, then you could actually see it, and must have been really, well, quite overwhelming, I think, I would imagine, seeing everything you'd actually gone through. But that tangible, having a pen or a pencil in your hand and writing it down on paper, that physicality of the exercise itself, I would imagine that actually is a really, really good exercise to do.
Actually, it is. Yeah. It more so than I even expected it would be.
Yeah. And it's almost like, in a way, I mean, I'm in early years, so I always think with the children hat on and a chunky crayon in your hand, and it's because you're not verbal. That's how you talk. That's how you communicate often. You know what I mean? You can and art therapy, and there's so much actually around that whole tangible aspect of having a pen, a pencil, a paintbrush, something in your hand, getting it onto paper, how you're feeling, and in your case, it was actually putting a graph and creating this time, this what would you call it, from beginning to where you're now. And then, as you say, because you're physically doing it, you're then remembering things that you'd actually, as you say, it was in the attic, it was packed away in a box full of dust.
Lots of dust.
And you wiped that dust clean. You brought it down from the attic. You opened it up because you need to do that. You need to go through that process as part of your healing.
You do.
That also takes bravery and it takes courage.
It does. It takes huge courage but I think what was also very profound for me was looking at it almost from an outside, looking down on what I'd written. I was like, flipping heck, I actually went through some stuff, because it was up there in the box in the attic. You forget about it. Then you start to open that box and you go, whoa, okay, I am pretty brave. I'm doing all right.
You've shouldered a lot in your life, and I think as you see it on paper, and then it kind of just like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what my life has been. I need to change, and you can make that change happen. So if someone is watching right now and they feel trapped in a similar situation, what would you want them to hear right now?
One, you are not alone.
Mm.
Two, very important, what you are experiencing is real. It's real. Number three, there is a way out. Even if you can't see it now, there's a way out. And lastly, I think this is the most important thing. You don't need to take a giant leap. It's not about that. Just take the next step.
Mm.
It might be tiny, but just take one step.
As you said, turn each page one page at a time, not a chapter at a time, because our
Yes.
life is full of chapters. And there again, it does take bravery. And also, would you add on to that to actually try and take that step now, sooner rather than later? There's no better time than now, or not?
There's no better time than when you are ready.
Mm.
So very often I've found in my experience that with particularly people who are going through gender-based violence or domestic violence in particular, that step terrifies them. And it's about planning and just stop. If you are in imminent danger, for sure, get out right now. Get out. Don't worry about anything. Just get out, right? That's your life comes first. Get out. But if you're not in imminent danger, physical danger, and it doesn't feel right for you right now, then do it when it feels right for you. Because it
And
might be too overwhelming right now.
yeah, absolutely. And I think they might need to read your book 2 times or maybe even 3 times for to sink in, to do your exercises, to write their own from birth to where they're at now, to do that exercise,
Yes.
to pick up that
Yes.
pencil with a paintbrush. That's their journey, but at least you're giving them some hope, which I think so many people, they feel there's no hope, there's no way out. But your book does give that. And I think it's pretty incredible. And then, how can friends, families, your local community, how can they better support people going through trauma? I often, there's that thing of Ubuntu, especially in our country, where we all help one another. We help, the goodness in life. We're there for each other. But the actual fact is often you have neighbors and you hear shouting going on, there's something happening, children are crying, and then they sit and they don't do anything. They actually don't want to get involved. They keep their nose, oh no, what's their problem? They must deal with it. Where do we sit with gender-based violence? I know it's tricky because also you don't want to put your own life in harm's way.
Mm.
You might have also children in your own home that you don't want to expose to what's going on next door. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Then there are recourses that one can do that maybe get somebody involved. Have the SAPS app on your phone, perhaps. You can report something with your name or anonymously, even with SAPS. It's a really, really good app. Or call the authorities, call the local security company, call the police. Where do you sit with that? Because I know for me, I think, I think I'd like to be big and brave, but now that I have kids, I think that bravery has waned a tad because you think you don't want to bring any issues into your own home. I don't know.
Every situation is different. So if we're looking at just if it's a friend of yours who's going through something and they're coming to you to speak to you about it, then my advice is just listen without judgments. You're not there to judge them.
Yeah.
You're not there to try and fix the problem. You just need to be present.
Just give your ear. Just listen. Yes, be present. Look them in the eye.
You just believe them.
Yeah.
Don't minimize what's happening. Don't say to them, oh, but everybody goes through this at some point in their life. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that totally minimizes it all, doesn't it? Yes.
Not helping.
No.
Just be present. And then there are those times, those situations where, it's somebody else and like you say, maybe a neighbor. I remember a situation a couple of years back. I was still living in Schlanger, and I had an article clerk working for me, and we heard this screaming on the road, a woman screaming like frantically. And so we both leapt up at the same time and ran out the gates. And we see this woman running down the road. And I said to my article clerk, get your car keys, quick, quick, quick. We grab her car keys, jump in the car. We pull up next to this woman because by the time we get the car out now, she's run past my gate. And we just open the door and I say, get in. We dragged her into the car, and then because there was a man literally running down the road chasing her.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
and then we took her we spoke to her. She was obviously in a state. We took her to the police station, the nearest police station, and sat with her. And we were just there. It didn't, she needed to be rescued out of that situation. And we were, I don't know if it was brave enough or stupid enough to get in the car and do that. But you must do what's right for you. So, calling a security company, there are always security companies in most areas. I don't, think too much of SAPs, unfortunately, especially with what's going on at the moment. But, SAPs are there to protect us. So if SAPs is what you've got, then go to SAPs. You can report things anonymously. Um, and one of the things you have to remember is that the Children's Act places a duty on everyone to report any instance
Exactly.
where there is potential abuse of children or neglect, or where a child is in a position where they could be harmed. So a domestic violence type thing, you have to report it. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you could be guilty of an offence. So there are certain situations where you actually have to report.
Absolutely, and this is a conversation I often have in with the principals and teachers that I work with, and that because and they
Yep.
think, is it really my? And I say, yes, it is, because you're in a
Yep.
position of authority, and if you know something's happening, rather report and be wrong than don't
Yes.
report and you're right. And then
Yes.
what sometimes might happen is that if the parents know that you know something, they might then that child disappears from your ECD center, and their child's
Yep.
lost. So you could be the one person in that child's life who can actually stand up for them and can actually
Mm.
be that child's saving grace. And there's so
Yep.
many red flags with a child. They speak without talking. They
Yep.
communicate without talking. And it's so critically important that. But yes, as you say, even with neighbors as adults, we are absolutely bound by that. And it is law. And I don't think many people
Yep.
know that. We are
Yep.
obligated to help our little ones.
Mm.
So, and how important is that tribe, Corinne? That tribe in one's life. I mean, we're lucky if we have a good tribe, whether it's a small tribe, a big tribe, could be a group of women friends,
Yes.
some old school friends. I mean, tribes vary. They look very different, I'm sure, to everybody. How important is that tribe? Just having that connect group.
Yeah, look, I mean, a safe and supportive community can literally be the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. And what you said is very important though. The size of your tribe doesn't matter. We have this thing that, oh, you must have lots of friends and blah, blah, blah. No, it's quality over quantity. So I literally have two besties. That's it, two. And those are the two people that I will go to with anything. If I am feeling like I just need to rant and rave, I will pick up the phone to one of them and they will just sit and, yes, Karen, yeah, I know, I hear you. So, they're just there, they're those people.
Yep.
And and I can tell you that how important that tribe is because when things went down with my son, I realized just how strong my tribe is
Mm, yeah.
because I was able to pick up the phone
Mm,
and say, I need you to get there and I need you to do it now, right now, not in 5 minutes, not in 10, now. And they did. I had different friends doing different things for me, for him. And so developing, they say in Africa, it takes a village to raise a child.
mm,
It takes a village to keep us safe. It takes a village to heal. And it doesn't matter where your village is. My one best friend is in Pretoria, my other best friend is in the United Kingdom. It is what it is, but they're
but
there
they
and
do.
they're my tribe.
That absolutely, and because of technology and WhatsApp and all that good stuff, thankfully we can be there at a minute's notice. There's no longer
Yeah.
having to wait for telegrams and snail mail and stuff.
Pigeon. Homing pigeon.
Oh, 5 years ago, you said there was a dilemma. And also it's when you're going through that, when you need help, that's when you find out who your tribe are.
100%.
That's it.
Yeah.
And also something else I've also realized in my life is that, yes, as you said, with the size of the tribe or your friendship group, when I was younger, social butterfly, tons of friends.
Mhm.
I look back at it now, actually, most of them were acquaintances. And as I get
Yeah.
older, yeah, your tribe is very small, but it's okay
Yep.
because it doesn't
Yes.
matter. It's the strength of that tribe that matters more than the
Mm.
quantity of the tribe, hey, the size of the tribe.
100%. Yeah.
So, Karen, having said all of this, how resilient do we actually need to be today?
I'm going to push back a little bit on this
Okay.
resilience thing. I was at a whistleblowing event about 2 years ago, and one of the speakers is a whistleblower, and she was asked to speak about resilience. And being a whistleblower is unbelievably traumatic. I mean, beside my son, the witness protection thing, that's one thing. But just being a whistleblower, just speaking out about something, whatever it is incredibly traumatic. And very often why survivors stay silent is because they get re-traumatized, right, by speaking out. And this speaker she cried, she literally cried. She said, I'm tired of being told I need to get over it, to be strong, to be resilient, to be there for my family. I'm tired. And it so resonated with me, you
Mm.
know, because I just want to be allowed to be broken.
Mm.
I want to be allowed to cry
Mm.
and to be a mess. And in the months following my son's going into witness protection, I was I couldn't cry. I had to be strong. I had to be the anchor for the family because I've got family still living with me who rely on me. And I've got a business. I'm a sole practitioner. I have to keep everything afloat. I have to be this rock. And I got to a point where I became completely and utterly dysfunctional. And my mom looked at me and she said, just stop, just stop. And I went and sat on my veranda for 2 days and I drank coffee and I cried. I used a whole load of tissues, probably 2 boxes, and I stared out of the window because I got the most beautiful view and I just stared out of the window. I turned off my phone and I didn't do anything. I just allowed myself to be a beautiful mess. And I think what we need to realize in the world is that, yes, we're all resilient. South Africans are incredibly resilient people, but it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, I think us South Africans and all of us actually, have been with our past and where we're at now with unemployment and everything that we deal with in our day-to-day life. We do gender-based violence, etc. We've maybe upped that resilience a lot, and we say, yes, I'm trying to be resilient. I need to be resilient. I need to be resilient. It's almost like we're talking ourselves into this. I need to be this way, but it's like, but if you're not feeling that way, how can you be that way? And I think they almost see that being broken and being honest with yourself and being broken is a weakness, and being
Yeah.
weak, but actually in this case, being broken is a strength. It's not a weakness. It's a strength because you have to allow yourself to be broken so you can find
Yeah.
strength to become strong again and to start that journey.
Yep. So I want to add another little story just to that because it's something that was very powerful. So after those 2 days, I saw a counselor. The second time I've ever seen a psychologist in my life. The first time was with James, and the second time was with this. And during the second session, her name is Christelle. She was amazing. During the second session, she asked me, what am I feeling? What emotions am I feeling? And I said to her, I'm angry. I'm angry at these people who have forced my son to go into witness protection. I'm angry that there's no justice. I'm angry that he's been taken away from me. I'm angry that he's going to lose his whole life, his career, his wife, his family, his pets. He's losing everything. I'm angry that I'm not going to have grandchildren, certainly not in the next few years. I'm angry. And after I'd finished ranting and being angry, she said to me, Karen, can you see that your anger comes from the most incredible love?
She turned it around. Absolutely. Yes, light bulb moment for you, hey?
Boom.
Absolutely. So you mentioned justice. What are some of the biggest challenges that survivors of gender-based violence face when they try to seek justice? They reach that point, right? I need to deal with it. Yeah, because then, as you say, often they are re-traumatized.
Yeah. So fear, big one. Fear of the unknown, fear of what's going to happen to them, just fear on every front, and it's okay. It's a terrifying ordeal to go through. Financial dependency is a massive, massive problem, especially in South Africa. And unfortunately, we're still in this paternalistic, you know, kind of society where men still earn more than women, and men in very often still control the purse strings. So financial dependency is a huge problem that survivors face. Lack of support, and our system is very overwhelming, and it can be very re-traumatizing. You go and get a protection order, and you sit in a in a space that's filled with other people who are going through trauma. You've got clerks of the court who don't really understand trauma, and they deal with it every day, that they've become completely immune to it. They just don't see it anymore. They've got no empathy left because it's all gone, because they're not given the support that they need to deal with that vicarious trauma that they feel. It's a secondary trauma because they've seen it every day. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges, unfortunately, a lot.
So what changes would you like to see in an ideal world in the system to better protect survivors?
More trauma-informed systems. 100, that's the most important thing. Faster processes, and then much more emotional and psychological support for survivors, because there isn't that. If a woman is in a dangerous position, we say, oh, she must go to a shelter. Really? Why? Why mustn't the perpetrator go to a shelter? Why must the survivor go to a shelter?
Yes, you turn. Yeah, no, I hear you. We even and you've done a good video. You've given us a good video on our YouTube channel on that. Like, yeah, if you actually own the house or it's your home, and the perpetrator, why should you leave your own house? The perpetrator needs to leave, but how can you get them to leave?
Yeah.
These are,
Yeah.
and also, and like as you say, many women do stay with their. When I say, I mean, men also do have gender-based violence on themselves as well. But I'm just saying,
100%.
know that obviously the majority is with perpetrators being men, but. And they stay because they say, well, at least I know my child has a roof over their head and they've got food in their tummy. And then I'll just put up with what I'm putting up with, because they see no way out. So as you say, it's such a huge compounding issue to try and change the system. You've got to start at the grassroots, because it is just such a huge problem in the country, in South Africa. Yeah. So today, what does triumph mean to you personally?
So triumph isn't about perfection. It's about the ability to stand in your own truth with your past and still choose to move forward, still see lights, and still see beauty everywhere. That's triumph.
So it's a daily thing of waking up to say, today will be a good day. And yeah, no, I hear you. That sounds wonderful. And we've just had Freedom Day. How do you define freedom, Karen?
Sure. Freedom for me is being fully me.
And being allowed to be fully you. Hey.
Yeah. Without taking ownership of who I am. without fear, without shame, just standing in my truth.
Absolutely. And having said that, what are you most proud of personally, not professionally? 'Cause there's loads of accolades professionally for you, Karen, I must say. But personally, what are you most proud of? If you can put it into a couple of words.
So apart from being, sorry, apart from being
Oh,
unbelievably proud of my son,
mm,
I think the other thing is that I never gave up on myself.
yeah. You kept
Mm.
going. You just kept at it. You kept going.
Yeah.
And that took immense courage, immense bravery, and immense strength on your part.
Yeah.
But then I think you, being the role model you are, was to your son. I mean, that's why he very likely is able to deal with and tackle what he's had to go through because he's got
Yeah.
you as a mother. Would you say there might be some truth in that?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. I tried to find the video that was taken at my 50th birthday where my boys both gave a little speech about me, and both of them are very different characters. And the Clinton, the one who's in witness protection, he's just this. He's a writer like me as well, and he says he just has the most amazing way with words, and things that he said were just so like overwhelming. So yeah, I'd like to think I played a role in that.
I think you must have. How could you not have, Corinne? Hey, from the sounds of it, your sons also really sound like really lovely young guys, well-grounded, and just good, solid young men,
Yeah,
who'd be
they
there
are.
forever, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, what do you hope for readers to carry with them after reading your book? What is
Uh, yeah, that healing is possible,
mhm,
that your past doesn't define your future, that you can choose how you want to define your future because of your past. Because, like I say, I'm grateful for everything that happened to me because it prepared me for my son's purpose. And that your story matters.
mm,
Everyone's story matters. Mm.
absolutely, and just that it is real, and that yeah, as you say, not to brush it under the carpet. So when I ask you, how do you hope your journey impacts future generations, young women and young men, I guess that would be the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that they grow up knowing their own worth.
Yes, there's a lot of
And that they,
self-worth. Yes, absolutely.
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
No.
Because I think in today's day and age, they're bombarded with so much stuff
Yes.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, they feel very, discombobulated. I love that word.
Me too.
And we see it a
It's a good
lot, the things that the youth today have to put up with and go through that, we didn't have to, the internet, you know, all these scams and sexual predators who are on the internet and things like that that we never had to deal with.
yeah.
It was different, in our time. So yeah, knowing their sense of self-worth is so important, and that they must never ever feel that they have to stay silent in order to survive.
Yes. Yes, I like that very much. And I do think you're right because when we were young, there was bullying and there was grooming happening and there was child
Yeah,
abuse and there was lots of things happening. But nowadays they've got it double fold because it's happening in real life and it's also happening online.
yeah,
And it's actually it's pretty hectic. So
mm,
yeah, there's just so much more education that parents need to be helping their children, in their homes. What are
yeah,
they seeing? What are the children seeing? What is appropriate? What is age appropriate? Because also what used to be age appropriate 20 years ago is okay now.
yeah,
It can be, haven't
absolutely.
they? So many things have changed. Let's just get back to those fundamentals. the fundamentals of parenting, because that will make a huge impact in a child's young life. Eh?
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Karen, I want to thank you so much. Thank you today for your honesty, for your courage, for turning something so painful into something that brings light, understanding, hope, and encouragement to others. Your story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a path forward, and that healing, while difficult, is possible. And so, to everyone listening today, watching today, if today's conversation resonates with you, please know that you are not alone and that your story really, truly matters. If you'd like to respond to anything discussed today, please feel free to comment below on the video or reach us at carecommunity@fnb.co.za. We are a safe space for you to come to seek help. Karen, where can our viewers buy your book, Trauma to Triumph, and how can viewers contact you at Dignified Dispute Resolution?
So my book is available online at the moment on all the usual online platforms, Amazon. There's so many of them I didn't even know existed. But anyway, definitely as an ebook it is available, and the print version is coming out soon. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Exciting, can't wait.
I know. I like to hold a book in my hand rather than read a book on a laptop. But these days, kids, the younger generation with their Kindles and iPads and stuff, they read everything as an ebook. So it is available as an ebook. Obviously, it's much cheaper if it's an ebook because paper costs money because trees have to die. So, and then if you want to reach out to me, best is via social media. So you can find me on Facebook. Karen Botha Attorney is the best way there, or on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, those are the best ways to contact me about this. And I'm looking into doing webinars and workshops based on my book and the 12 sort of steps in my book. So look out for those. I'll be posting those on social media.
Your webinars and that sound really fascinating, and we will share them on our own socials as well, on our FNB Care community, our GBV Care community, so people know where to find you as well. Karen, 30 seconds. Do you have one last message for our viewers?
Yeah, definitely. Whatever you are going through right now, you need to know your story is not over. It's just another chapter. There is strength inside of you, even if you can't feel it. And there is a way forward, even if you can't see it. You deserve a life of dignity, safety, and peace.
And I think that is a beautiful way to end today's discussion. There's so much more that we could have. I think we actually could do a series of podcasts, Karen, to be honest. There's just so much to tackle and to unpack. Bring down some more boxes from the attics, dust them off.
100%.
And go through
I'll help you bring down those boxes.
So everyone, thank you for joining us on the Care Community Podcast today. A special thank you to our very special guest today, Karen Botha. Karen, we truly appreciate you. Thank you for being a light in our not so light world often today. Really appreciate that. And until next time, dear viewers, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you for tuning in.